I'd like to start by telling you that I stutter, and I'm okay with that. It took me 35 years to be okay with that, and I hope it's okay with you. Yeah? Yeah. And my talk is about the gift of stuttering. Not only a gift to people who stutter, but actually a gift to everybody, including everybody in this room, including me. But what I'd first like to do is to take you back to when I was 7, and because that's when my stutter started. And what happened was I'd always been found talking pretty easy, but suddenly my mouth stopped working all the time in the way that I would, and it would I would particularly block, which is like on words, and my tongue and my lips wouldn't work in the way that I wanted them to, and it's very frustrating. But I guess more important than that was the reaction of my classmates, who found this extremely amusing and would laugh at me. And in the playground there'd be some pretty aggressive teasing as well. And I suppose I quickly learned that speaking up was risky, and therefore I learned to speak up less. And really that continued for a couple more years. And what had brought on this stuttering was it was a trauma of what was going on at home. And that really brought out my stuttering, which has always been there because it's a genetic condition, but it brought it out. And what was happening at home was that my mother was severely ill with cancer. And when I was 9, my father and my brother came to pick me up at boarding school one Friday evening, and as I got in the car, my father told me that my mother had died the previous night. Obviously a major life moment, and as the next few years went on, there were letters home from school to say they were worried about me. My stuttering had become more pronounced, and really that was really the start of what sounds extraordinary now, but a kind of 40-year experience of feeling ashamed of my stutter, of being mocked for my stutter, of learning that it's actually often easier not to ask the question when you don't understand than risk stuttering and the consequences that come from that, because that's the societal penalty for stuttering, whether that's at school or at work. And actually in work, the stakes are particularly high, particularly when you're a senior partner. And so I would not ask questions when I didn't understand. I fell behind. I certainly wouldn't volunteer for talks, something like this. It's actually really amazing to me that the boy with the stutters invited to a TED talk. That's a wonderful gift to me. So through this time, I was avoiding, and even as a senior partner, things got really challenging when I found myself that I was almost always the most senior person in the room. So I was chairing, challenging meetings with challenging clients, bankers, lawyers. I was often giving talks, and on one particular occasion, I was asked to read the lesson at the memorial service for actually my great mentor, a chap called Richard, at a very senior partner, global vice chair in EY, and where I was a partner. And I knew this would be a challenge in terms of my stuttering, but I kind of went for it. And what happened was I did stutter a lot, and this was kind of the best of EY, and I couldn't even read 12 lines without stuttering, and my stuttering voice was coming back at me off the far wall of the cathedral, and I was still trying to say this word. And I went back to my seat, and I just felt like I wanted the whole cathedral, or hundreds of people there, just to swallow me up. And I just, coming out of that, I thought, I've let the firm down, I've let Richard's family down, I've let Richard down. And coming out of that, I thought, I really need to get to terms with my stutter. So many things in my life are going well, but my stutter, particularly when under pressure, has still got a hold of me. And I took time to learn about stuttering, that it's genetic, that it's neurological. From what I knew of my mother's family, I now know that my stuttering comes from her side. But I also thought, I want to help other people. So I launched a network at EY called the Ey Stuttering Network. I was creative accountant at the time, and I was proud of that. And then 2 or 3 years later, in 2013, I launched with the British Stammering Association a nationwide network called the Employers Stammering Network. And then in 2019, I launched a global network called 50 Million Voices. And the reason we called it 50 Million Voices was because there are 50 million adults of employable age in the world who stutter. If you think Tokyo is the world's biggest metropolitan area, it's 40 million. That's Tokyo plus London, 50 million, a lot of adults, so much unfulfilled talent amongst people who stutter. And I love this idea of all these stuttering voices, all our stuttering voices, from all around the world with different accents and different stutters and different faces and different cultures, all coming together in 50 million voices. Wow. We're a global campaign. We're transforming the world of work for people who stutter, and actually for employers, and I hope for society too. And this is our leadership team, which is drawn from 13 countries. I'm going to name them going east to west: New Zealand, India, Israel, Kenya, Ghana, South Africa, Germany, France, UK, Ireland, Canada, where we also have the French Canadians involved, USA and Peru. So a beautiful mix of ethnicities. But you'll notice actually on that chart that there aren't many women, and that's because only 20% of the adults who do stutter are women. And that puts women who stutter in a particularly challenging minority within a minority situation. And two of the women there are speech and language therapists. So now what I've learned through 50 Million Voices is when we have our meetings and they're on Zoom, the respect when somebody who stutters is speaking is very present. There's great patience. We give each other time. It's like a slow down, and we just wait for those words to arrive. And what I've learned is that actually this group of people, whilst I worked with several really great teams when I was at EY, this is the team that listens best, and best including my 35-year career in business. And it's the best because we just give each other time and therefore confidence to speak. The other thing I've noticed in these meetings is how when the stuttered word arrives, it often comes with a power and a weight because we've waited for it. And there's a wonderful example recently where Emmanuel Machocha, that's my best Nairobi accent because that's where Manu comes from. Emmanuel Machocha, Manu, was talking in a meeting. In fact, he put an idea in the web chat, which he sometimes does, very bright guy. And I said to him, Manu, would you like to talk about that, or are you comfortable with it being in the web chat? And he said, no, I'd like to talk. And he took a long time to make his point. But when he made it, it came in his own voice, his own accent, his own stutter. And it landed like it was a gift because there was so much determination that he put into saying that sentence as his idea. And that was 3 or 4 months ago, and I can still remember his idea. I can't remember any of the other ideas from that meeting, even the really brilliant ones I had. But the one that Manu had, it was the weight. And another sort of parallel example of that is the song, You Ain't Seen Nothing Yet, by Bachman Turner Overdrive. They recorded that without the stuttering in. And the producer said, well, in fact, the producer didn't say anything. There's 2 brothers in that group. One of them, Gary, stutters. And the other members of the group had a joke, made a copy of it with the, you ain't seen nothing yet, baby, you just ain't seen nothing yet. And the producer said, that really lifts that song and that's going to lift the album. They released it, massive hit on both sides of the Atlantic. It was the stuttering, it was the impact of that stuttering in that song that made the difference between just another album track and a #1 Billboard in the US. So there's this weight of stuttering. So I'm talking about what I've learned through working with this brilliant, brilliant team in 50 Million Voices. And I think what I'd like to take away from that is actually people who stutter, we're good with words. It's rubbish to think people who stutter can't communicate well. And when I did this next slide, it was twice as busy, but I've had to cut it down so you can all read it. But these are the names of people who stutter or stuttered. And I've color-coded them by kind of profession, so there are actors there, authors, leaders, presidents, even prophets. There are some of the world's best ever scientists, and in my opinion, some great songwriters too. And I could honestly tell a story about each of them, but the message I want you to take away is these people are at the top of their profession. Some of them have changed the world. Some of them have saved the world. They're people who stutter. It's not that when we speak there's a problem. It's when we're heard. It's in the listening. And that listening in the 50 Million Voices team has really woken me up to that. But what about for people who don't stutter? What do they think about our speaking and how that impacts their listening? Well, in 50 Million Voices, we run practice interview events for people who stutter, free interviews. You know, an interview for everybody is challenging, but an interview with a stutter, I don't know what the technical term is, but I think it's nightmare, okay? So we give free interviews, and we have people volunteer who stutter, who kind of want to give back, and we have many, many allies who don't stutter, who very generously give their spare time and their experience to give free interviews. And we've had several hundred people go through this program now. When we ask people to come into the program, we of course ask them what they want to get out of it. And the people who don't stutter, the interviewers, they say words like, I want to help, I want to support, I want to share. Very generous with their time, really kind, you know, wanting to help people that are perhaps less fortunate than them. When we got the feedback, and particularly from the pilot, we of course asked people, what did you learn from this? Now, that's a very open question. What did you learn from this? I knew we'd get great feedback from the people who stutter. I knew it. But I didn't know what feedback we get from the allies who don't stutter. And I was blown away, absolutely blown away, because they were talking about that they were benefiting too. And here are some example quotes from them, and of how they felt they benefited. So this one, he chose his words very carefully, and each one had a power that is lost. Each one had a power that is lost when too many words are used. So this point about the stuttered word being something very precious, that it's really worth waiting for, and when it arrives, it kind of comes with that sense of, wow, this has really been worked for. This word, this sentence, my right to speak has been earned. The second one, the experience reminded me that the essential things of life cannot be seen with the eye. Both patience, so slowing down, we all need to slow down in the world. Patience and presence are needed for a mutually beneficial relationship. Mutually beneficial, that's interesting. So the listeners, the allies, are seeing that they came in to help and to share and support, but they're benefiting too. And they're feeling a presence in this listening, in this very special connection with this complete stranger, probably from a different country, possibly speaking English in a second language, but they felt a presence together. This one, I've learned some important life lessons around society's obsession with perfect communication and articulation, and how I feed that. Now, we could have a big TED talk about that one, but we're going to stick on the listening theme, and also the importance of staying present in the moment. Again, just not looking back, not looking forward, just being here in a conversation, a connection with another human, and really listening to another person. Not just listening, really listening, feeling present in the moment. And I'm thinking, we didn't ask questions about, did you feel present in the moment? Was the listening any good? We just said, what did you learn? And the final one I'll share with you is, what struck me was the quality of attention. And of course, it's when we pay attention and really hear that we can then move on to have the best discussions and come up with the best ideas. So the quality of attention and flowing from that the quality of presence, and that I gave and I felt. So again, this movement between the speaker who stutters and the listener who doesn't stutter, and actually this giving and feeling. And I would say, so where is the stutter in all this giving and feeling? Is it still coming out of the stutterer's mouth? Or perhaps it's in the ears of the listener? Or perhaps, as some commentators say, it's between. Yeah, it's this connection. So why I'm sharing this with you is because, yes, people who stutter, we experience higher levels of unemployment, higher levels of social anxiety. There's terrific bias against people who stutter in the workplace. I could tell you heartbreaking stories. But I'm telling you this because what I said at the beginning, I think this gift of stuttering, this gift of helping us listen better, applies to us all, as this experience in the practice interviews, I think, shows. But what has it brought out for me, for Iain? How have I gained? Well, after the difficult experiences I had, stuttering at Suffolk Cathedral, stuttering leading some major pitches for the firm. I really took some time out to think about my stutter and its relationship with me, and I had to go right back to age 7, and that's where I sort of learnt about that I've inherited this stuttering genetically from my mother, and I kind of, when things are tough in 50 Million Voices, which they are quite often because I get really frustrated when I feel people aren't listening, when they're kind of there but they're not really showing up, you know, and I go back and I wonder, should I carry on doing this? And actually what it's given me, what it's given this guy, who I go back to, he's kind of really the chair of 50 Million Voices. What I go back to is that connection with my mother. This work has somehow reminded me of her. It's taken me back to her. And I think in a way that for over 50 years, I sort of didn't feel that connection, and now I do. So this work is so deeply important to me and my career life purpose. So let me bring this together. You know, so I think what's the gift? Some of the gifts of stuttering are, yeah, stuttering gives us strength, so I'm sure I'm more resilient because I stutter. It's this sense of community. You know, I can meet people from all over the world, from very different social backgrounds, very different economic backgrounds, and we have this bond in common, this bond of struggle, really, and a kind of, but still being here to show up, to speak. And the stuttering gain, you know, what has stuttering given me that I could not have got from anything else? And I think that stuttering gain for me is that relationship with my beautiful mother, Barbara. But the big message I want to leave you with, and I really want to leave you, is that for listeners, what it gives is impactful words. It's the strength, it's as they arrive, it's the power, it's the intimacy of some of those words. It gives that precious time, slow down, just wait for that word to arrive. Don't butt in and finish the sentence. Wait for the strength of that word. Presence, you know, how connected, how present are you feeling? Am I feeling? How present am I feeling in this talk? I'm feeling very present with you, actually, thank you. And also connection. As Brené Brown would say, connection, that's what we're here for. And I truly believe through my work with our 50 Million Voices leaders team, such strength and personality in that team, and through what we're hearing from the allies who don't stutter through these practice interviews, is that stuttering can really help everybody become better listeners. So my invitation to you, my ask, my demand of you, but my invitation to you is, next time you hear a stuttering voice, or go and find a stuttering voice. There are plenty of us. There are 50 million adults. There are 50 million of us out here. Listen up carefully. And hopefully, not only will you hear what we have to say and connect with us, but it will help your listening to become more patient, more respectful, more present. You'll get a deeper understanding and a deeper connection. And in the world we have now, I think that's a really precious gift. Thank you very much.